everybody, and welcome into a new edition of Esports Weekly. I'm Ryan Bailey. I'll be your host as per usual. And thanks so much for tuning in. We are now getting ready for double digits here in phase number 2. Week 10 coming up real fast, man. Or actually, week 10 already happened. That's how fast it came up. I already missed it. It's week 11 coming up this week. So only a couple weeks left to go. We know basically every team that's going to be going still. Splice, SK still battling for that last seed, I do believe. But we don't got to worry about it. Let's be real. Between you and me, it's going to be Splice in that spot. SK Gaming will be your top seeded placements almost certainly. But Obey Alliance looks hot all of a sudden. Dignitas is collapsing. What's going on with them? Will Renegades finish off their phase 2 win towards the back half here? Rival looks great one day and then loses to LG the other. We got a lot of stuff to go over, so make sure you're for the next hour. I'm going to start with something I just mentioned, though. That's Team Dignitas. Get a chance to talk a whole lot about it last week after their big losses, but they've got a big doubleheader coming up this week. So they've got to right the ship, man. I mean, they're going to Worlds. They are going to DreamHack Atlanta. They're going to the Smite World Championships, Hi-Rez Expo, and everything's good there. But is it? I mean, you watch this team play, and you can see the disconnect. I mean, is Hurwin going to the long lane, or is he going to the mid lane? What is going on with that? I mean, we saw the role swap before, then they swap back, or now they're back to the swap. It's odd. It's odd. And in the lost SK, you know, they lose to Obey on a Thursday, then they play SK on Friday, and they get swept. And that's, I think, the big concern. Because this team has always had so much talent. I mean, going back to the old style of Dignitas, they were a top card the entire time. But the message was, can they handle the pressure? Can they perform at their best when the best is what is necessary? And they did well, I thought. Last year at Worlds, they lose in the semifinals 3-0 to Splice, but Splice was the hot team. They had the meta figured out. I don't think that was an internal problem with Dignitas whatsoever. Then this year, you know, MSI, they do not great, but no one was doing that great that lane, it felt like, except for Renegades. So we can write that one off. But this is the first time it feels like Dignitas is facing real adversity so far this year, and they are failing right now in response for that. That's going to be a problem for them. Big week upcoming for the Dignitas boys, Renegades and E United. I do not think you can afford to go 0-2 and end up feeling confident going into the Smite World Championship. So Dig fans, big week for you guys. Last week on the schedule was week number 10. We started off with LG versus PK, and PK, new look. Looked great. Rowe over there in the solo lane played very well. Didn't have to play a whole lot of different styles, but certainly got the job done. They swept LG 3-0, which is more impressive than you might think it is, because LG then turned around on Friday and beat up on Team Rival 3-2. What is the story of this LG team, man? I don't know. It's going to be fun to watch, and we are going to find out if they are your 8th seed or not as they play Obey Alliance this week. But Team Rival is going to be your top seed at this rate. It looks like they are looking real good in order to lock that one up. Splice SK still on the table for Splice to lose that one, but they're not going to, man. It's gonna be Splice going, I think. I don't think there's any way they end up not making it automatically to that Smite World Championship. And so it's all seeding. You saw 2 through 5 is a huge mishmash of different records, but they're all about the same. Plus, minuses, head-to-heads, all these kind of tiebreaker nonsense. That's what you got to tune into Esports Weekly for. As we get closer and closer to the end of phase number 2, we're going to bring you a ton of different looks at the clinching scenarios for seeding, what the bracket's going to look like, all that kind of stuff. This is your best place for that information, so make sure you stay tuned here for Esports Weekly for the next few weeks, because we only have, 2 weeks left after this in the regular season. It's been a quick one here, phase 2. When you're having fun, time flies. You know, whatever the phrase is, I think I messed that one up, but I'm not worried about it. It's time to move on to some top plays brought to you by Respawn. We're going to start off with number 5, and Arkil playing this Ho Yi. Arkil says, I'm not playing any of these mage nonsense. Give me the straight-up hunters and let me go to work, and he certainly makes it work just about every time in that long lane. You might notice that these lower thirds are of a much higher quality, great jokes, everyone loves them. That's because I wrote them. So John Finch didn't taint our show like he did last week with his blasphemy. Number 4, Joshi on the Poseidon. This is a big part of the win for LG up against Rival. And we learned that when one water god takes on the other, the one that has the bigger domain, Habwa just the god of the Yellow River, Poseidon, he's got all that water. Josh with this quick 180 Kraken and getting out of there at the exact same time. Nice play by him. Number 3, Spudio in the SML, out cold. The team with Pretty Prime and Dimmy and Frostiak and Spudio, all former SPL players, starting to turn it around and look like they're what we expected. And Spudio putting late game Chronos on display right here. Is this good, by the way? Like, you take a bunch of damage, you rewind it, you put yourself in a different position, then you get a huge stun and do 300 damage auto attack. I'm pretty sure my calculations say that's good, but I'm not exactly sure. We'll find out later, maybe. Number 2, PBM, despite the loss up against LG, really shows them that maybe they need to work on the objective secure. He out-secures a Scylla ult on this Gold Fury, as there was some miscommunication on this one with that reflective mirror. Mike steals it away. And then you go, okay, well, that's good secure, but it's not the best secure. The best secure is Ice Assault. There is no way Mike steals away a Fire Giant from an Ice Assault, right? I mean, that's just not going to happen. About that. PBM, 2 for 2 on those objective steals. Unfortunately for him and Team Rival, did not find the win in that set. And then number 1, you may have been hearing me talk about this ultimate a little bit on cast recently. With Amaterasu's resurgence, we take a look at the ultimate. 995 base damage plus 150% scaling. Look at what Xaylia does to poor Panda Cat right there. Whoa, what is that damage, dude? It's not like she's a bad team fighter either, man. That was a 6 skill shot by Xaylia, by the way. The whole lane with Dazzling Offensive. That quadra kill won LG game 1 and ultimately was a difference in their set. But Amaterasu is a thing, apparently. I don't know. I wish my ultimates did that much damage. Recenter yourself. Move on from Amaterasu. Zeus is cool. Okay, I'm back in form. Everyone, welcome back. Let's take a look at the next week's schedule. Week 11 coming up for you. We're going to open up tomorrow with Splice up against United. Dignitas and Renegades going to be a great set if Dignitas can return to old form, but might not be the best confidence booster for them. Then they've got another tough opponent in United on Friday. And then Obey Alliance versus LG will close out our SPL Week 11. A big game for seeding going into placements. A couple weeks ago, I would have said, yeah, LG's got this one in the bag. And then Obey beat Dignitas, and LG beat Rival. So both teams, impressive wins on the resume as of late. So you know these guys are playing well. This one's going to be a lot of fun to watch, as is this entire Esports Weekly show. So make sure you stay tuned for the next couple minutes. And by that, I mean like 50. Stay tuned here on Esports Weekly. Welcome back to Esports Weekly, everybody. The defending champion Splice, certainly not the exact look they won Worlds with last year, but looking like they could repeat with Aurora and Cyclone Spin underneath that banner. Venenu, Scream, and Solar Patrol have been killing it as well, and recently Venenu was able to sit down with F.Dot in studio. Let's take a look.
Hey, what's good, folks? Tom Badger here, sitting next to Venenu, the mid lane sensation of Splice. First of all, man, you know, it's all esports. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing good.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed the move down here and been doing like movies and stuff like that and hanging out with the team and stuff. It's always nice to being able to like see people in person and getting to know them more and stuff.
Yeah, that's the biggest deal about LAN is that how how you guys are so close. And last year we saw Splice, a different team, you weren't involved, but how they got close living together in the summertime. Now it's kind of this whole year thing. Talk to me a little bit about the chemistry of Splice and how important that is as you guys find yourselves successful.
Honestly, I think it's like super important, especially coming from like SSG, like where we weren't moved together and like we were together for a year, but like being able to see people in like person and hanging out with everybody is like a big thing. Like you get to know each other more and like what people like and like what better you can do together. Like always hanging out with somebody, you're gonna get to know them, right? And you're gonna become closer and friends, and then that builds trust, and trust is all like everything about the game.
That's the key, man. Trust. When I watch you guys play, there's so much trust involved. Aurora will just go behind enemy lines, knowing that you're gonna walk up onto the red buff
Yeah.
alongside with him. How much of that is built in scrims versus on the SPL stage versus doing stuff outside of the game, like you said.
So in scrims, like we're gonna try everything, right? We're gonna push our limits because it's the only way to know how far you can go. So like when we're pushing our limits in scrims, like we look like a bit like idiots. Like sometimes we just feed, and it's just like, well, this isn't good. But like once it becomes SPL, like sometimes we try out picks and leave stuff open so we can see how it is compared. Um, but in general, like testing our limits in scrims is like the biggest thing. So we know like once it's SPL and game day, like oh like this didn't work when we were in scrims, like we can't push our limits there and everything like that.
That makes sense, kind of going a little bit further than the normal when you guys have that scrim environment.
Mhm.
But then on the big stage, you guys still convert and do crazy plays. There seems to be kind of like a hierarchy, and I kind of want to talk to you about your role. We've discussed briefly how players on the team like Aurora and Cyclone will go ahead and grab like a lot of the spotlight,
Yeah.
and you don't always grab that, but you seem totally fine with that.
Yeah, I'm totally fine without getting spotlight. I mean, personally, I have like four big spotlight players, and like to me, like you always want that one person that will be like gather the team together and make everybody calm and like all right guys, like we still gotta win, like we gotta pay attention, like don't get ahead of ourselves, like just keep playing like what we're playing and like keep growing as a unit. Like we always have like more to grow. Like we're never the best. Like we gotta keep going and going and going. There's always like that one more step, and I feel like that's kind of like where I am. And I'm like I don't need to be that spotlight player. Like if they need me to like step up, then I'll step up and do that. But that doesn't seem to be the role that they need me ever. Like we already have our plans around everything like that. So
Kind of that literal eye of the storm in
Yeah.
the middle of everything, kind of keeping it tranquil.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've used the term role player to describe you in a completely positive light, and it's funny. Some players take exception to that. You, I think, have kind of ran along and grabbed that. What does it mean to you to be the role player for
Yeah.
Splice?
honestly, it's fun being the role player because I get to play like whatever I like is needed to play. So
Yeah.
like I'm never consistently going to be stuck on the same god over and over and over again. So like once like meta shifts, like it's easy to me to just like okay, I'm gonna be playing this set. I'm gonna just grind this set of gods and then just keep playing and then when it gets to like that point, like we're willing to try stuff and be like, okay, hey, let's try this, and they're like completely allowing me to like try stuff and whatnot, and they trust me and stuff. So
Kind of like the Swiss Army knife.
yeah,
So we'll build the team, and we need some crowd control. Venenu, you're gonna play ISIS.
Yeah.
Well, if she gets through pen.
yeah, always been.
So is there a world where you don't? Are you playing chalk mid? Is that where you draw the line? Like,
yeah, I won't be playing that one. Too
What-
iffy.
what is Venenu's kind of perfect world? Do you like the mages? Do you like the hunters? Do you like the weird assassins?
It's probably between the mages and hunters. I don't mind playing all the hunters. I pref mages because that's the mid role. And like always like. It seems like to be at Worlds always is like the mid laner that makes the spotlight plays because it's like the mages and they always make those spotlights and the
Yeah.
hunters like they're always doing their job, but they're not like right in the center and like how hey this person's just like popping off like they're just like doing their job no matter what, right? Where like in mages like you can make a lot of cool plays and like it's just like it's a lot more skill based. It feels like playing mages, so that's like why I like to play them.
Yeah, it's funny. Open-ended. I brought up ISIS before. Characters like that seem to fit Venenu kind of idea where I can stun this guy, I can silence that guy.
Yep.
You like to have a lot of tools because, like I said, when you're surrounded by players like you are, it kind of seems to be something you can fall into. Talking big picture with Splice and talking, Worlds, obviously qualifying for Worlds throughout is the goal here. But worst case scenario, you got to play through placement stages. How are you guys feeling about that?
We're feeling confident for sure. I don't think there's any chance that we won't make Worlds. We won't allow ourselves to not make Worlds. Like that's our main goal, and like it's just not going to happen. Like we're making it no matter what.
Does Splice win the World Championship this year?
Yes, for sure.
For sure?
We will scrim 10 hours a day if we have to win Worlds, for sure.
Yeah, I love that attitude, man. You've always had it, and you keep it up.
Yep.
Thanks a lot, man. Venenu, mid lane sensation for Splice. He's just that good.
Thanks so much to Tom and Venenu for sitting down and doing that interview. Love hearing from Ven. I think that he is the perfect idea of a role player, and I mean that in every sense of the complimentary side of that word. If you want to see more content like that, make sure you check out youtube.com/SMITEPro. Stay tuned here on Esports Weekly. E United has a big week. We'll talk about it next. Welcome back to Esports Weekly, everybody. E United, last time we saw them, had some great highs and a couple downs, I'd say. Now they've got a tough week ahead as we get closer and closer towards Smite World Championships. We've got Anatoly Alexeyenok, the correspondent here for E United, joining us in studio. Toli, last time we saw E United, everyone was feeling pretty good.
It's a while.
And then they got reverse swept by Rival, but they were up 2-0 in that set.
They were up 2-0. It's not looking too good for them. This is a team that is really, really good, but they're not elite compared to the likes of Renegades, Splice, and Rival. Beating PK was nice, 3-0, mind you, but then on the flip side as well, losing that set to LG was just so inconsistent for them earlier on in the split, and then losing to Rival as well in that reverse sweep. It's a little surprising to see how E United can look so good at times and then just kind of fall short.
And it doesn't, I mean, we see some teams play to the level of their competition. Do you think that's the problem for E United? Because they do play up sometimes, but it's also against really, really good teams,
Sure.
and sometimes they play down against really good teams. Do you think it's that simple? They're just playing to what they're playing against?
I don't think that's the case. I think it's about riding off of momentum for E United. On the days that they show up to play, they dominate their competition. They end the game with a 2-1 in terms of kills to death ratio. On the games that they lose, it's less than 1 kill to every death that they get. So they look like a totally different team on the sets that they struggle with.
So it feels like they're a more early game team, just based on that they snowball very, very well. And I imagine that a lot of that comes through Ice Ice Baby and the way that he plays in that jungle. I mean, he looks like a catalyst for this team. He and Kalas have that synergy from the Rival days. And I think when E United is looking their best, it's because Ice Ice is looking like he used to.
He definitely does. He's a little too predictable, I think, in some of the pick selection that he goes for. A lot of our Long Shen, a lot of Thor. I think he needs to expand beyond that and maybe rely on more than just on her for big man things. Even though he has a very wide god pool, he plays a lot of on her, and a lot of players in that mid role like the physical hunters. But there needs to be more coming from Ice Ice Baby. It's all about the jungle, and I haven't really seen too much out of him in the sets that he's lost.
Yeah, I think that when they don't get off to a good start, they have trouble recovering from that. But they are one of the best teams in the league at pushing leads. But Splice is one of those teams that I think it's going to be difficult to get leads against. Splice is an early game monster team of their own.
Yeah, they look like the elite team to, make Worlds and then win Worlds as well. To do back-to-back would be impressive, similar to how Energy did it before. And the last time that these two teams faced off, Splice was with Baskin. Splice won that 3-0, made it difficult for E United as well, despite losing its sets. But this is a set where I think E United will struggle in.
And it's going to be a lot around how well Ice Ice Baby can handle these invades coming from Aurora. You know Aurora is not necessarily going to be on your speed, but could come behind you in mid or something like that. Ice Ice Baby, I think, is going to have really good control of the entire map to understand where they're going to need to be.
It might need to be Callus assisting in the matters as well to do some counter-invading, trying to shut down the likes of Scream potentially, because Ice Ice Baby is used to these kinds of invades, but needing to find some footing to disrupt the enemy jungler, more importantly.
Certainly has that potential, though. I mean, Kalas and Ice, when they're working well together, I think are still a top-tier contender for just about anybody. A lot of these highlights coming from their dominant set up against PK just a couple weeks ago. I mean, these guys have the potential to blow out just about any team.
It definitely does feel that way. And it's not just Splice that they have to face off. There's also a very big opponent against them.
That's true. I mean, they've also got Dignitas later on Friday. But I do want to stick on Splice for just at least one more moment, because I think that the Dignitas team is reeling right now. They are really, really struggling. Splice has been playing well as of late. I feel like this is a really good test for E United. Do you think it's as simple as how well can Scream match up against Ice Ice Baby, or are you looking somewhere else?
It has to come down to the picks and bans. It's going to be the support show. Kalas up against Aurora. Aurora likes to play aggressive. He's played mostly Horus and Hercules and have been looking for those invades. Kalas plays for more team fighting gods, likes his Athena, likes his Kepri. So it's going to be the early game versus the mid to late game between these two teams.
I think that's a good identification by you. The predictions that I'm looking at here do not seem to favor E United. Everyone feeling like it's going to be Splice. You as well voting Splice. What swayed you on this game?
It just was the inconsistent week. I think the previous time that United did show up, it was beating PK 3-0 and then getting reverse swept by Rival was not a good look for them. I think that they have more potential than that. They look good. They're just not quite elite. This is a good test for them, though.
Now on the side of Dignitas and their game again, that's their game on Friday. Dignitas is struggling right now. I think Neil Ma said he thinks they're slumping a little bit, which I think is a good identification. Do you think that E United just comes out early and goes on the offensive and sees if that can carry them through the set?
I don't know what to expect from Dignitas because they have done so many different things. It's hard to really predict and pinpoint what Dignitas are going to throw at E United. What we can expect is E United to come in and bring the game that they've always being brought in terms of helping big man things transition away from that early game. I think that's where Dignitas really falls behind, is shutting down enemy mid players because of the swap of Heroine going in the long lane. They're trying to focus out that 1v1. I don't really expect Emilito to struggle against Heroine, and I'm expecting another E United win against Dignitas.
I mean, I feel like this is a match where E United, if they are going to be a top-tier Worlds finalist contender, this is one you kind of have to win against a team in Dignitas that's struggling. Do you think that E United is a legitimate pick to win Worlds this year?
I think they could win Worlds. They definitely could win Worlds. I wouldn't put them as the favorite to win Worlds, but they definitely have the potential to win against any team if they show up that given day. Against Dignitas, they found the victory on phase 1 in a reverse sweep, a very impressive reverse sweep too, because it was their second defeat only for Dignitas that entire phase, their first one being to Renegades, and then that same exact last week up against the United.
It's going to be a fun one for United fans for sure. Totally, thank you very much for joining us here. Dignitas has been the talk of the town as of late. Their struggles, what's going on with this team? Let's ask the expert, Graham Hinduman Hatfield, coming in and joining us right after this.
We're here live from Atlanta. The players are here. The stage is set. Let's get down for Esports!
This is where we also talk about the new stuff that we've got coming out for you all.
Look, HRX is literally my favorite time of year. It truly isn't close. This is what I live for.
It's that second place. I can't wait to see what first place is.
It's HRX.
Welcome back, everybody. Team Dignitas, when you're struggling, no one's sure what's going on with your team, you lost a little bit of confidence, here's the reward you get. A game against Renegades and a game against E United in the same week. Happy birthday, Dignitas. We've got Graham Hinduman Hatfield joining us here in studio. Hindu, what is going on with this team?
Nobody knows. That's the real problem. I think they kind of peaked too early. If we want to take a big picture, Phase 1, they got off to a really big flying start. And it was a fantastic start from them in Phase 1. Something like 10-1 or something like that because of the fact that Renegades weren't on the scene. They played Renegades a little bit later. They were pretty much undefeated up until that moment. But as the season's progressed, I feel like they may have peaked too early. And now we're starting to see the other side of the coin where, they lost against Obey 3-2, and then they got swept by SK Gaming last time we saw them in the same week. This is a Dignitas that's starting to struggle, and I got a chance to speak to Biggie, and Biggie was like, listen, they're saying the right things in communication. They're talking about things, but they're not following up with their actions. I'm hoping this was an outside situation where it's a one-off week and a bad performance from them, and they were just playing down to their opposition, being technically on paper worse than them with how their years have been. But there's an outside shot here that this is just the realism of, this team's not going to be there.
I mean, I can't fathom that being the case, though. I mean, they look so good in Phase 1. MSI doesn't go their way, but it's not like they look terrible there. The 3-2 loss to Obey, even though they're a worse team than SK Gaming, concerns me less. You dropped 3 against Obey, but they were close. They threw a new meta at you.
They made mistakes.
Right, it happens. To then come in and get absolutely crushed by SK the next day, I think says much more about the mental state of this team, and that's where the worry comes.
And that's where my concerns are, because you've actually seen this in their playstyle too, of the role switches they've been doing between Ataraxia and Horrywind. During the set, when they started to lose, they started to experiment more, or maybe it was pre-planned, but from an outsider looking in to an extent, you can see that they were unsure about what they should do. Should they have Horrywind in mid lane to provide more pressure? Ataraxia was playing these sort of gods like Olaron in mid lane, which we don't see too often, but it doesn't bring a whole lot of pressure to that 3v3 core that is so important at the moment and we're seeing more of. Instead, it's been more of a focus on Trux and Kivo sticking together and letting the laners do their own thing, which has seen a bit of a separation compared to the rest of the league, that has seen more of the supports be off in the wilderness and the core being potentially, the mid and support being together now and again, with the jungler being free roam too. It's a very weird dynamic, and I just don't think Dig have found an identity the second phase as the season's gone on. And they experimented, and it's not working out. The worst thing is they're walking into Renegades and United this week.
Yeah, I think this is a team that's susceptible to losing confidence rapidly. And I think that's how can you not lose confidence when you get beat by Obey and then swept by SK? But now you face against Renegades, who's probably the best team in the league right now, and an United team that looked really good last time we saw them. I mean, are you really going in saying we've got to win these?
Well, here's the thing. You've into the World Championships directly already, but it does come down to placements, and the placements can be very, very impactful. Specifically because I think there's a really good shot that if Dignitas aren't careful, they're going to end up being against United at the quarterfinals at Worlds. If that's the case, this match on Friday where they take on United could be a precursor to what we can see at the World Championships. If that's in Dignitas' mind a little bit, maybe we'll see them throw a few curveballs, maybe not play the selections that they were going to play for United.
Sure.
End of the day, though, this team wants to win. They want to be the #1 team if they can. They've just not had a good, roller coaster of a season. It started so well.
Yeah.
It really does feel like they were on a roller coaster. They were climbed all the way up at the start. All the way when you're at the top, the only way is down.
That's true. That really has been the case so far here for Dignitas. I mean, they looked a couple weeks ago like they were going to be the guaranteed second seed.
Agreed.
And
if
maybe,
not first.
Yeah, if not first.
Yeah.
And maybe not overtaking rival.
And now like 5?
Unbelievable. It's been a crazy ride so far for Dignitas for sure. And I don't really know where to begin. I mean, Renegades, this feels like a matchup where you're kind of just hoping that Renegades does something that you're prepared for?
Funny enough, I do feel like Dignitas match up on paper better against Renegades than some of the other teams, just because of the amount of Europeans involved in that game. And everyone always debates the EU and anything, but having more of the same players from the same pool in your region, you've played against these guys a lot. A lot of these would have gone against each other on former teams and knows the playstyles and chemistry that comes from these players.
Sure.
So there's a way to potentially break them down a little bit more, knowing where their weak points could be in Renegades playstyles. Is Dardus too aggressive? Is he holding his abilities too much? There's those windows that they could find benefit out of.
And then on Friday, it is that matchup up against E United. And as of late, E United has really, I think, found their identity as an early game team.
Yeah.
And that's where Dignitas clearly struggled against Obey in that start without the blessings that they were doing.
Definitely.
I think this one is scary for Dignitas.
And that's the worst thing is Dignitas are definitely worried about the early game. I think that's where their weakest points are at the moment is the early game. Their mid and late game is pretty solid and they can fight back into games. They can be behind a bit and still get back into it. But that early game can put them really far behind. E United, for me, though, they are really dark horses for Worlds. Like, they are the shot at the World Championship this year when you see how well they perform. But I think a lot of this is it's important for Kivo Frederfield to get on a high-pressure god early on in this. You can see some Saket game against SK. I think him getting on aggressive gods early and looking to make plays is going to be important. I wouldn't mind a little bit of a tendency to start leading towards the solo lane, because not many teams are doing it right now. But I do think they could find a window there to like give Variety some carry opportunities in that role by getting him a bigger lead in the early game, and then have that wash over into the team fights as a team where Atarax and Horrywin can get involved. Because at the moment, I don't think they've really decided on. It seems like they leave Horrywin alone in the duo lane a lot on his own, and protect Ataraxi, but Ataraxi is not doing anything with that lead that I'm seeing generated. There's not really a lead anyway because he's sharing experience so much.
Right.
So you've got to find pressure somewhere.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's been a problem so far for Dignitas, and it looks like it might be enough of a problem to sway the votes
It hurts me.
of many of our casters. You included, voting United.
My own team. I'm having to go against them. Yeah.
John Finch, the lone Dignitas member that's voting for them here, expecting them to win.
I think he thought it was LG probably.
Yeah, it might be. I don't know, man. I tend to agree with you. I think I'm voting United in this one.
It's rough because in that situation, I don't think a lot of people would have got it in the start of the year thinking United could do this. But with how United have been playing just lately and how Dignitas' performance have been on the lackluster, it's been very awkward.
Unbelievable roller coaster for Dignitas so far. Hindu, thank you very much. Renegades, on the other hand, their roller coaster has been smooth sailing. Doesn't sound very fun for a roller coaster, but fun for the team. Stay tuned. We'll talk about the Renegades next.
What's up, guys? Titan Isaiah here, and I've got some huge news. Cross-platform play for Smite is coming to PlayStation 4. Starting with the Odyssey Underworld update, PS4 players will be able to play with and against players from across all Smite platforms. At launch, cross-progression and cross-monetization will not be supported. We're still working with our friends over at Sony on this, and we'll be sure to provide more updates in the future. This is a huge milestone for Smite, and we can't wait to welcome PS4 players into our cross-play family. For more information, head over to highresstudios.com/crossplay. We'll see you on the battleground.
Hunter reporting in. Specimen acquired. I don't know why you put such a high price on these things. They barely put up a fight. I'm en route to the drop point for payment and transfer. I want these things off my ship. I don't trust a job this easy. Hunter over and out. Don't keep me waiting.
Welcome back to Esports Weekly, everybody. As much as a up and down season it's been for Team Dignitas, Renegades kind of the other end of that coin. Started a little bit down with a bunch of games and not being here right away, but has been on the up and up ever since, still climbing and still undefeated here in phase number 2. Anatoly joining us here in studio once again as the correspondent for the Renegades. Totally, I mean, at this rate, I don't know if Renegades are going to lose.
It doesn't look that way, right? At all. This is a very fun team to watch out of Renegades because you don't know what they're bringing in on that given day. Between Funballer and Dardas, their god pools are so wide and diverse, and there's so many fun facts between these two players that I've noticed, actually. Funballer has only played one physical hunter the entire phase 2, and everything else was magical. On the flip side, Dardas, he's only played physical hunters between Amusin, Cobb, Anher, Xbalanque, Uller, Rom, Cupid, and Artemis.
It's been a weird ride for Renegades for sure. I'm trying to think of who the one physical hunter Funballer played was.
Should be a dead giveaway.
I don't know, man. I kind of want to say, like, oh, you're giving me a look, and now I'm worried about my guess. I don't know. Give me a hint.
It's Anher.
Is it on her?
Yeah, it's
okay.
on her.
Oh, okay. All right.
That's what he's known for.
For what it's worth, Tyler in my ear did say on her. He was right. I was wrong. Tyler, I'm sorry. I should have trusted you all the way. Look, man, Renegades, there is a real opportunity for them to not lose a game since spring and then win Worlds at this rate. Are you concerned that it's too much winning? Like losing, you learn from a little bit more? Is there any argument to that?
I don't know, because Energy looked like they were unstoppable in that one season. It wasn't the season 3 that they won, but season 2 in Europe, they completely dominated online portion of that one, and then transitioning to Worlds, they dominated there as well. So I don't know. If they can keep up this pace, nobody's looking like they can stop this train, because so far, in the 19 games they've played, they've won 15 of them.
That is absurd. Only 4 losses here in phase 2 as individuals.
Yes.
I mean, that is an insane stat. They still have a couple games to go, though. Feels like a couple games still on the schedule. This one up against Dignitas normally, I think, would have been one that you were starring and saying, hey, this one might be where we trip up. This might be where we lose. with the way the Dignitas is playing and the way the Renegades are playing, this feels like one that Renegades should be heavily favored in.
I think Renegades are the kryptonite of Dignitas because before these teams faced off in Phase 1, Dignitas were 7-0 in Phase 1. Renegades were their very first loss ever. It did go all 5 games, and then since then when these teams refaced each other during the quarterfinals of MSI, Renegades won that set again in 3 games without dropping a single game. And I don't know what's going to happen in this Phase 2 game. It's looking like Renegades are still dominant. Dignitas struggling.
Feels like Renegades, I mean, maybe the one concern is that they might get a little bit complacent with where they are. I mean, they've been winning so much. We saw Nika play Thoth solo the other day.
He did,
I mean,
yeah, that was fun.
Maybe is that the bigger concern than someone just outright besting them right now?
It's possible, but if there is going to be a team to do it, I don't expect it to beat Dignitas in this current situation. There's going to be some fireworks, I think, in the long lane, though. It doesn't matter if it's Ataraxia or if it's going to be Heroine. I think Funballer's going to be having an interesting time in this long lane. But outside of Dignitas, Renegades still have PK, Space Station Gaming, and United to go from the remainder of their Phase 2 split. Not the most difficult of opponents.
No, I mean, PK in turmoil right now with Deathwalker moving over to mid, though he looked good there as Ro looked good in solo for PK. Space Station, who knows what's happening there. You feel like Renegades have an overwhelmingly good matchup. And then against United, right. That's a tough one. But that's the only one that feels like it's tough right now. I mean, Renegades have a real shot, and they would make it up, I believe, to the 2nd seed if they were to win out at this rate. I mean, they've got PK ahead of them, but by beating PK, that would put them in 2nd.
They do. Now, Rival are still not mathematically guaranteed the 1st seed if they were to lose out, because currently Rival are 13-4. The best case scenario that they can be is 15-4, whereas currently Renegades are 10-4, and best case for them would be 14-4.
Okay, so it looks like Rival not locked it up.
Not yet. Close.
In a good spot,
Very
it seems
close.
like. Renegades up against Dignitas, man. I mean, I would have been shocked to see anything but this. This just feels like a matchup where Renegades, if Dignitas come out and win, it changes their whole season at this point.
Oh, it absolutely does. I think that whoever wins this one might have a good running at Worlds regardless, right? Because Renegades continue their hot streak, and if Dignitas win, that would give them the confidence they need going back into Phase number 2, because currently they're 3-4 in the standings of Phase 2. Not a good look for them considering the way they ended Phase 1 at 7-2.
I think your comparison to Season 2 energy is actually, or was Epsilon at the time, is actually super apt, because that was a team that was dominant, but also ended up being the 2nd seed out of the region going to Worlds that year. Behind that was Fnatic, I believe, that was the top seed. It was either Fnatic or was it the Orbit team?
I think Fnatic, it was the Orbit team.
Yeah, I think
because
you're right.
Fnatic came through the qualifier or the wild card against Eager.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So it was that Orbit team that was the top seed, but everyone knew that this Epsilon squad was the one you really had to watch out for, and it feels like that might be what's happening here for Renegades. They might be the number 2 seed, but the favorite to win Worlds.
It's funny because going into Worlds, we always talk about that second or the 1st seed curse.
That's right.
Because 1st seed, I think it was COG Red that was 1st seed going into Worlds, but it was COG Prime that won it, and then same thing that you just mentioned for Season 2.
Genius plays by Funballer and the boys. Don't get 1st seed, because that stuff's cursed. 2nd seed is the spot to be in. Totally, thank you very much. And talking about the undefeated Renegades, Obey Alliance, a team that looked kind of dead in the water. Who knew it was going to happen? They're coming off a big win up against Dignitas. Hindu Man's joining us on the other side to talk about it. Welcome back, everybody. Obey Alliance looking good as of late, something I might not have said a couple weeks ago, but now having a pretty big matchup up against Luminosity. We've got their correspondent, Hindu Man, joining us here in the studio. Hindu, I mean, coming off a win against Team Dignitas, they started a new meta. Yeah. Without the blessings?
I know, and I'm a little bit concerned, though, because this matchup is against Luminosity, and Luminosity Gaming themselves are coming off a very big victory, too. They found a big win against Rival last week, and that is a big boon for them. If you actually see how the standings play out right now, there's a chance Obey will be 9th in the standings.
Yep.
Specifically because of the following matches that these guys play, Rival and Splice. I think it's Obey have Rival left to face as their last game after this one, and LG have to face off against Splice. Realistically, both those should go to the other teams, so this one could be the decider of who ends up on top between 9th and 8th position, and that does have a knock-on effect on the placements too of who you face.
I mean, it's going to be tough to get through placements. You want as good of a seat as you can get, I think, is a very fair
High up the
assessment.
table, the better you're going to be.
That's right. I know you and Weekend had a little bit of fun the other day on Twitter about your blessings and that kind of stuff, but that meta...
I was asking about it, seriously.
Like, I know, me too.
I was legit like, well, what's the tier list of what gods work well with this meta of, like, going for the boots instead? We even saw the likes of Pittsburgh Knights doing it. Adapting was running it with going for the Warrior tab at the start after getting a ward kill.
I think we all had a little bit of fun with that start.
Sure.
Like, oh, no blessings. What are these guys doing? It might be right.
It might be, and I think that's based off the invasion strategy we've seen from support so often. You can just sit back a little bit in your base, and then they're going to waste their time. Supports aren't necessarily going to clear the buff at level 1 on their own. They're looking to just slow you down more than anything else and put the pressure on so you delay your farm or luckily lose farm. Could be the case. This matchup is really big, though. I'm really surprised we got to this window where it's Obey versus LG, and I was like, okay, who cares? It's a battle of the bottom. These were the bottom 2 teams I expected to be here at the end of Phase 2, but it's not the case. Space Station's below them both, and they've both found ground this phase, which I wasn't expecting.
I completely agree with you. Both teams have exceeded expectations, and a lot of, I think, Obey success, yes, the no blessing things and all that kind of stuff, but Moswell's been playing so well in that mid lane. His addition after that mid-season, I think, has been huge for this squad.
And I do think like they've just played the right windows for where their strengths are now. I think the team's just got more comfortable with Mineral being added to this roster. It has given them a sense of comfort. Mineral's definitely the outlier that still needs some work, but he's been performing a lot better and synergizing well with what Weekend and Moswell want to do consistently in this set. They're looking up, and they're looking great because of it. This was a dominant performance, the Merlin game specifically out of him. We all know Moswell's got Toth and they got pulled, but his Merlin games were something to be spoken about because he did such a good job of dealing a ton of damage and staying very, very safe. Positioning is key in that position.
Also soloing Heroine in that mid lane. I mean, you know this guy's got a lot of game. He won a world championship last year.
Yep.
It wasn't that long ago, so I think that people have forgotten about it.
I know I'm the Obey correspondent, but I'm leading LG more because it's even the fact that Lasborough was on this Obey roster at the start of the year on Trifecta, right?
This is the grudge
he's got
match.
a reason to want to play better against Weekend in the jungle. It's those two facing off in the jungle position.
And Ionic as well was on this Obey squad.
And so they know a little bit of the behind the scenes of how this Obey roster runs. So Obey's really going to think about this coming into it. I hope they play to the strengths. I'm just worried that LG beating Rival the way they did. That's going to be a feather in their cap. That's a more than beaten Dignitas. You know?
Yes, a slumping
both of them
Dignitas up against Team Rival, you're going to be taking that. But at the same time, LG just got swept by Piqu the day before.
They did, and if you think about that, that's the thing. Cause like, if they would have got swept by Piqu and Dig, you're like, okay, well, LG should be at the bottom still. Obey are going to win this one, no problem. But the fact that they came out and played so well after their loss in that set, and then performed so well up against them and found that victory, has turned this set around where I think this is a really big matchup that we're going to see.
I think Obey Alliance, as we move closer to placements and they try and qualify for the Smite World Championships, there's just a team that teams are going to have to be ready for and what they're going to do in that early game, right? I mean, they've really changed the way the early game is played right now with this no blessing start. What is the next evolution of that is kind of up for them.
And that's always what metas are about, because the meta has been, we went from the fact that we had 2 in the dual lane to 1 in the dual lane. The support then started invaded speed buffs to put pressure there. So the adaptation there is, well, let's not have the jungler even in the position. We'll try him in the red buff start, or we'll try him at the base, trying to get farm at the beginning of the game by getting gold and getting full boots. These are the options we're seeing, and eventually someone will work something else out, and that's when Worlds comes around.
Yep.
And you'll see it come to fruition of, will this even work? We've seen Talaria boot starts at World before, if you remember, once upon a time.
Season 3.
4 rushes.
Yep, Season 3. That was the meta. The good news for Obey fans, in my mind, Terra, Kumbhakarna do not work well without Assassin's Blessing. That helps this team out. Can't be jungling those Guardians without.
That's a good point. I mean, that's the scary thing is what Guardian could he potentially run on any given day, right?
Oh, Kuzenbo.
Geb.
Let the
saw the Geb before.
little Kappa tank for you might be good.
Only if he's got the Mafia skin on, though.
That's the brand new one. Make sure you pick that up. We're marketing here on Esports Weekly as well. Graham, thank you very much for joining us and talking Obey. We talked a lot about LG and what their team is looking like after getting swept by PK and then beating rival John Finch. Going to join us and talk about how they're feeling going into their set against Obey.
We're here live from Atlanta. The players are here. The stage is set. Let's get down for Esports!
This is where we also talk about the new stuff that we've got coming out for you all.
Look, HRX is literally my favorite time of year. It truly isn't close. This is what I live for.
It's that second place. I can't wait to see what first place is.
It's HRX.
Welcome back, everybody. Luminosity, a team that we were high on, then we were a little bit lower on. Then they give Australian Row the first Australian win and set win, and don't beat them at all. And then they beat Rival, so we're all high on them again. Who knows? The roller coaster of LG continues. That's why we've got John Finch in here.
Hey.
Talk about him. Finch, I mean, which team is the real Luminosity? The team that got swept by Deathwalker mid, or the team that beat Rival?
I'm going to do something very brave here and say both, which is exactly what you wanted to hear from me, right? They are both of those teams, aren't they? They're the team with variance, with that high-level potential, where sometimes I think they can play really well, and then also they can get caught off guard, I think, and get swept, too. This is still a fairly new roster, but they've been impressive here in this Phase 2. Their record, I think, is the same as Dignitas. If you just look at Phase 2, they've played really well here up until this point. It's just that, you know, they're a team that inherited a pretty bad record from Phase 1. I think there's a really good chance you'll get Snoopy and sometimes Lasbra and Joshy playing really at a high level, and then sometimes you'll get what you saw there where they get worked. I think the big difference maker for me really is how well Xaylia plays for what version of this team we see.
Yeah, that set against PK in particular, I think Xaylia struggled pretty mightily.
Yes.
You gave him set 2 games in a row, didn't really do a whole lot with it. Then he gets the AMA in the set against Rival, gets the quadra kill to end the game. I think that's a very astute observation. And this is a team that should, I think, have a lot of confidence. And it's grudge match time up against Obey. Lasbra and Yannick, you know the boys want some revenge.
And I'm sure that they do, and this is one I think that they're favored. I know I already mentioned that Xaylia is the one I want to hone in on, but I can talk a little bit more about why that's going to be so critical here in this matchup. Xaylia played the AMA in Game 1, but for what it's worth, he actually got worked for the entirety of that game and made one big play at the end. It's the rest of that set that really impressed me here for Xaylia, playing the Vamana and the Jormungandr in particular. If I'm on Obey, there's no way I'm letting Xaylia have the Jormungandr in this set. I think that is the kind of god that is difficult to mess up in the laning phase. You're very likely going to be able to make it out of that relatively even, and then is impactful once you start getting into the team fights. And Xaylia played it masterfully in that set. That's something I'm looking for. How well do he and Ducky match up? And in particular, will Obey be taking that pick away from him?
It's one of those that he certainly looked good on throughout the year, and I think that is certainly one that he might end up playing. I mean, this is a critical moment because you know these teams are going to be competing against one another at placements. Neither one automatically qualifying to the Smite World Championships. Both teams squaring off at the placement phase. And there's a world where it comes down to these two teams for who goes to Worlds. So this is a good measuring stick, I think.
It's huge, man. And I think that one of the other areas that I want to look at for that measuring stick potentially is Snoopy in the middle lane for this team. Because Snoopy can still flex over into the long lane where he'd be potentially playing up against Wowie in that matchup. Or it could be him up against Moswall. I think you correctly identified Moswall earlier as a big star player for this Obey roster. Well, Snoopy's about as big of a star as you can ask for on the side of LG. So those two going head-to-head, there's certainly going to be some fireworks as a result of that matchup. And like I said, potentially a swap. We've seen them do that as well, so it could be Snoopy over there towards Wowie as well. For me, this set's very much going to come down to how well Xaylia plays and how well Snoopy plays. And if those two both play up the way that we know that they can, I expect them to 3-1 Obey, honestly.
I think LG is a team that also has to be looking at the start that Obey is doing, the no blessing on Mineral or on Weekend.
Yeah.
That does kind of pigeonhole your god pool, right? I mean, you can only play so many gods that don't need Assassin's Blessing Do you think that's something that LG might be able to take advantage of?
Yeah, in both cases, I think so, yes. I think take the Serket away from Mineral. That's a pretty high-value pick for him, I would personally say. And then as far as the Assassin's Blessing go, I don't know if it's something you can ban away. Like, you can't ban Thanatos or something like that. But be prepared for that to be the start from Obey, that they're a team that likes to play aggressive and really does kind of need that early momentum, I think, to win their games a lot of the times. They can struggle to make the right decisions in the mid to late game if they're dealing with a 5K gold deficit.
As the predictions show, LG the favorites here by way of our casters at Skillshot. I mean, I feel like LG is the favorite team. I think SK and LG are the two teams that are favored to make out of the placement.
Yes,
Do you agree with that?
I do agree. I think there's a chance that Simplicity can make some noise if they make it through from the EU SML. But my money right now is on LG and SK to be the two teams that make it back out of there. And if they do, good luck up against these two teams at Worlds, man. They get hot at the right time all the time. That's one of Zapman's best things that he does, right, is just come in and suddenly start playing well when it matters. LG, the setup against Obey is big, but I think they could rightfully have their minds a little bit further in the future.
Man, it's going to be a lot of fun. I do think these are teams that, even if you get out of placements, then you play probably Rival and Renegades as the top 2 seeds. So great work by you guys that you set yourself up for that. That is tough stuff. Hey, Finch, before I let you go, did you see my lower thirds I wrote
Yeah, they were kind of trash today. Our kill, yeah.
That was good, first of all, and we both know it. But did you notice a distinct lack of hating on Baskin?
Yes, I have learned that is unpopular. It doesn't make me wish I hadn't done it. It does just make me wish that it had been more popular.
That sounds like you wish you should have done it for me. Finch, thank you very much for realizing what a grave mistake you made last week. The SCL and SML getting close to clinching time for a lot of these teams. In fact, some teams clinched this week, I do believe. Stay tuned. We'll go over it next.
Hunter reporting in. Specimen acquired. I don't know why you put such a high price on these things. They barely put up a fight. I'm en route to the drop point for payment and transfer. I want these things off my ship. I don't trust a job this easy. Hunter over and out. Don't keep me waiting.
Welcome back, everybody. With another week of the SCL and SML in the books, we have gotten closer and closer to finding out who's going to be coming to that placement week. Let's start with PlayStation 4 in Europe, because a big week for Aerial Arise as they look poised to take this region by the horns. This was Outcold Gaming's region at the Midseason Invitational, but Aerial Arise has looked solid. And it's not that Outcold has looked bad or anything like that. It's really that Aerial Arise has looked like the best. They will be coming to Worlds, at least for the placement week, after this week's victory. They are at 8-2. Outcold certainly struggling a little bit in that region. As for Xbox EU, no struggles at all for Team Rival. We already know that they're coming. This region's been wrapped up with a nice little bow on it for a little bit now. It's going to be Team Rival, man. I mean, Dabo's Disciples looked like they had a shot towards the beginning of this year. They beat up on Hive Central this week, but this one's all said and done. Undefeated for Team Rival. Now for Ps4 Na, this one has been close all the way, and this week, nothing changed. Both Nemesis and Big Money Esports found victories this week, so they're both sitting at 8-2. They both have 10 in the plus minus, and it's all going to come down to the Nemesis versus Big Money Esports head-to-head matchup coming up very soon. Make sure you tune in on Mondays for that one, man. It's the one to go to LAN. It is crazy to me that Nemesis is in this position, that they might not be making it to LAN. Feels like that's a team that should be doing it, but Big Money has certainly improved, and you can see it in their play. Nemesis certainly has got to step it up. Even if they make it at this rate, they've got to play better than they have when it comes to actually playing at those placement weeks. All right, let's move on to Xbox North America. Hype Unit, the team, the guys, the best on console. You just use your eyes. You do the eye test. Hype Unit's the best team on console right now. I think Rival looks pretty good. I think that before you could have made an argument that Nemesis was one of the better teams on console with how much experience they had. The way they've been playing, they look anything but. Hype Unit, they're going to LAN, man. They're going to do it. Blanche Fan Club, I don't think is technically eliminated yet. I saw Bobby Inbound, the support for Hype Unit, actually tweet that he thinks Blanche Fan Club's the second best team on console. I've got one thing to say to that. Unlucky for them, because they're in the same region as Hype Unit, and only one of them gets to go to LAN. Sorry, BFC. You're in the same unit, same region as the best team in the world on your platform. Hate to see that. As for the Smite Minor League, things continue to get close towards the top. Europe in particular, man. Every week, it feels like another upset's about to happen or something crazy is about to happen. An out cold escape this week in a big set up against Horizon Union, one that felt like a must-win. This region, if you aren't watching every Tuesday at 11 a.m., you are missing out. Out cold, not missing out anymore. They're sitting at 6-3, and now in a very good spot to make it to LAN. Now, Flashpoint was on bye this week, and so you know that they've got a game in hand still, and it looks like their plus-minus is better. So out cold, going to need either some help. As long as they win out, I believe they are in a good spot. Simplicity also shouldn't feel too comfortable. They're sitting at 6-2, also with a game in hand, but that might mean a loss. You know, you never know. Top 3 looking really, really competitive. Queso not out of it yet either. They are sitting at 5-4. They don't look to have that same energy, I think, that the top 3 have right now. But watch out for the Poppies. You never know with those boys. As for North America, Sanguine and Hype Unit faced off in a huge set that determined the #1 overall seed as of this exact moment. And it is Sanguine who came out on top in a convincing 2-0, by the way. This was not particularly close. And this sets up Sanguine and Armada to look like favorites heading in. Now, Armada still has to play Sanguine. Just a couple weeks left until their match. So that one's going to be huge. If Armada win that, they're in. If Sanguine win that, they're in. Hype Unit now has to, I believe, rely on a little bit of help for things to go their way. Remember, it is top 2 in each region that make it to the Smite World Championships placement week. And then they have to get through placement week in order to actually play at DreamHack Atlanta. It is not easy for the minor league guys in order to make it in, but at this rate, Sanguine's looking pretty good. And for what it's worth, every pro player I talk to about the minor league level, every single one unequivocally goes, Sanguine's legit. Those boys can actually play, and I hope they get a chance to show at full strength. Remember, at MSI, they didn't have Yarkor in that solo lane. He is a big, big part of what that team does. I'm hoping that they can show up and be there in full strength for the placement week this time around. Now, if you missed the top end of the show, the standings, we showed them there. The standings right now are a hodgepodge right in the middle, right there between 3, 4, and 5. Everyone with 10 wins, but Renegades with 2 less games played than Team Dignitas. Dig just a few weeks ago looked like a lock for the #2 seed. Now, they might fall to 6th overall. Renegades with a bunch of games to play, like their odds of getting towards the top. They haven't lost since the spring. That is unbelievable for this squad. And it's going to be a big week, not necessarily for the Renegades, but I think for 2 teams in particular, E United and Team Dignitas. Both teams doubleheaders, both up against top-tier competition. Make sure you tune in tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. for Splice versus E United, and then we'll see if Dignitas can scrape together the pieces on Thursday and Friday. It's going to be a huge one as we get closer and closer towards that placement week. Thanks so much for watching. As always, you want to see more of our content, you can find us on YouTube at SMITEPro. You can tweet at us at SMITEPro as well, and that's the best place to stay up to date with all the latest SMITEPro information. If you want to get a hold of me on Twitter, at Agro, send me some dog pictures or something. I like dogs. What, Tom's the only one who can like dogs around here? Send me some dog pics for once. See you next week here on Esports Weekly. You can peach it.